Here's something that will change how you see your entire life. You see, 20% of what you do creates 80% of your results. Yeah, listen to that again. 1/5 of your efforts produce 4/5 of your outcomes. Most parents are killing themselves trying to do everything, manage every detail, attend to every event, optimize every system, solve every problem, and they're exhausted. But here's the truth that nobody's telling you. Most of what you're doing doesn't actually matter in the end. Not like in a cynical way, not in like a depressing sort of way, but it's in a liberating way. Because if 80% of your peace, connection, and family fulfillment comes from just 20% of your habits, then your job isn't to do more. Your job is to identify the 20% that matters most and ruthlessly protect it. So today we're going deep on the Pareto Principle, aka the 80-20 rule, and how it applies to family life. I'm going to show you how to identify your high leverage habits, eliminate the noise, and build a life where less effort produces more peace. This isn't about productivity hacks. This is about clarity. I'm Michael Loftmiller. This is Fulfillment Frameworks. So let's find your 20%. If you're new here, welcome. I am genuinely glad that you're here. I'm a husband and father, probably a lot like you. I have 5 kids at home, a wife that I absolutely adore, and life that's been anything but predictable. See, over the past decade, I've had to discover through success, through spectacular failures, through faith and family chaos, a set of frameworks for living that actually hold up under pressure. Systems that provide for my family, create genuine meaning, and prevent total burnout. You see, we just spent several years overseas doing mission work with our whole family, kids included. Man, it was an incredible experience. Stretching, exhausting, and life-changing, but incredible. But now we're back rebuilding from scratch, buying a house, establishing new rhythms, starting over fresh. Everything we're doing now, every framework I'm teaching, we're testing and using in real time. It's not just some theory. Okay, here's my mission with this podcast. I want to help you design a deeply fulfilling life that doesn't leave you ragged, burnt out, or ironically, sacrificing the very people you're working so hard for. Because here's the tragic paradox. Most of us are working ourselves to death. We're racing right by life and missing the roses along the way. All for the people that we never actually get to see and spend time with. We're building financial security while eroding relational intimacy. We're providing everything except for presence. That ends here and that ends now. Let me tell you about the week that everything clicked. Well, we've been back in the States for about, I think, 3-4 months. New location, new routines, trying to rebuild normal life after a couple years of mission work overseas. And man, was I still burnt out. And my wife was burnt out. We were all burnt out from the life and especially the organization we just left. Our family was not doing great at all. We were all in counseling, including the kids. My wife and I were doing everything we could think of to have a sense of normalcy and consistency, especially for the kids. So I did something radical. I pulled out a notebook and wrote down every single thing we were doing as a family, every routine, every system, every commitment, everything from the last several years. And the reason this was radical is because probably like you start with simple, small systems, especially when it's just yourself, then it's your spouse, then it's one kid and another kid, and this thing and that thing. Things slowly start to pile up over the time until you make a big change and you don't realize until that change happens how much you were doing, how much you're committed to. And so this is why it was radical. I don't think a lot of people take the time to sit and write all that down. And then what's even more radical is I then asked myself one brutal question. If I could only keep 20% of the things on that list, which ones would create 80% of our peace, connection, and fulfillment? I looked at that list for a long time. And here's what really stood out to me: daily family dinners together as much as possible. Obviously, things come up, but shooting for 7 out of 7 every day, every week. Weekly Sabbath rest. No work, no screens, unless it's, with the kids or whatever. Just presence. Nobody doing their individual things, stuff together as a family. Bedtime routine with each kid. Some nights one kid may need a couple extra books or a couple extra minutes, or another kid is like, I'm good, give the hugs, kisses, get tucked in, go to bed. Whatever it is, a bedtime routine with each kid every night to help them feel grounded and loved and safe. And then our weekly planning session. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's an hour. But the point is, as we talked about in the previous episode, just getting that weekly planning session done so that we can all stay on track and stay going in the same direction. And then for me personally, having morning prayer and devotion time, even if it's just 5 minutes. I cannot get through my day hardly without that. The days I miss it for whatever reason, those are always not good days. And that was it. That's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that might total around 10 to 15 hours per week. Pretty much everything else, it's nice to have. Helpful for sure, but it's not essential. So we simplified, we cut the noise, we protected those 5 things ruthlessly. And you know what happened? Our life transformed. Like, not our individual life, but like our family life. It transformed. As we were processing through everything, we more quickly and easily became less stressful. We had more peace. We had deeper connection. And ironically, more bandwidth to handle everything else because we weren't bleeding energy on 100 minor things that don't actually matter. And that's the power of the 80-20 rule. And today, I'm going to teach you how to find your 20%. You see, the Pareto Principle, named after the economist Vilfredo Pareto, he's an Italian guy, states that roughly 80% of effects come from 20% of causes. That means, like at work, 80% of what happens at work comes from 20% of the work being done. If you're in sales, 80% of the sales probably come from 20% of the salespeople. That just seems to be how it works. Because he originally observed this, that 80% of Italy's wealth was owned by 20% of the population. Now, things might skew with that particular observation today, but that's how it came up with. And so we see that over and over and over, especially in your own life. I bet you 80% of your stress comes from 20% of your problems. And here's the application for family life. 80% of your peace, connection, and fulfillment come from 20% of your habits. So the question is, what's your 20%? So we're going to break this down into 3 categories. Category number 1, time together. Most families spend a lot of time in the same house, but very little time actually together. You're in the same building, but dad's in his office, mom's managing logistics in the kitchen, kids are on devices or doing homework, wherever they might be. Everyone's present, but they're disconnected. And this is even more true now in our highly connected society on screens and social media and such that really just make us more disconnected. And here's the 80-20 insight. It's not necessarily about quantity of time, though you still have to put in some time. It's about the quality of attention. Okay. So let's just brainstorm real quick. You're sitting down doing logistics for the family, and kids keep coming to ask you questions, and you're shooting away, or you're like answering questions, but you're kind of not focused. Is that really what the kids want or need? Probably not. I understand the logistics have to get done. All right. I'm not saying don't do that. But what we've started doing is simply things like pausing, looking at whoever it is, spouse, kid, whatever, whomever, could be a distraction. That's why I said whatever. And just looking and seeing, okay, what is it? Okay, I hear you. I'll be with you in just a second. I need to finish this right here. And then you go back to what you're doing. And as soon as you finish it, you go and you address whatever it is. Obviously, always emergencies are emergencies. So I'm not saying I'm not saying to ignore emergencies. Just saying don't try to multitask because then you do both things poorly. And my kids, I've seen actually appreciate it once they got used to it of me saying, give me a second to finish so then you can have my undivided attention, because they would rather have 5 minutes of undivided dad's attention than 30 minutes of dad's divided attention. So here's some more things about how it matters most for us. Daily family dinner. I already said it doesn't happen every day, but that's what we shoot for because life happens. But the goal is as many nights as possible. No phones, no TVs, no tablets, nothing. Just us sitting around the table, talking, enjoying the food, enjoying each other's presence. And this one habit creates connections that a dozen weekend activities can't compete with. Because we get to share with what was our high for the day, our low, something we're thankful for, and then just things that happen throughout the day. We get to talk and energize and just see the smiles on and the happiness come from the kids. It's fantastic. Bedtime routine with the kids. Roughly, 5 to 15 minutes. It varies. As I said, we read, we talk about the day. If we didn't talk enough at dinner time, we pray together. It's simple, it's short, but it means so much to them. I don't have teenagers yet, but I hope so. That when they're teenagers, that they will still want to have this consistent personal time in the evening, one-on-one, that they know is safe, that they can talk to mom and dad about anything. Weekly Sabbath is next. The one day we already talked about this in literally the last episode, Sabbath as practice. One day when we unplug from work, from screens, from productivity mode, we rest, we play, and we just are. Like we just exist together. We just do things together. It could be a hike, could be cooking, trying something new. Like me and my kids one time, we attempted to make toffee. We made some good caramel, but it didn't get to the hard crack stage. So it's kind of like oozy toffee, which was still really good. So like it could be any number of things. All right. But it's just a single day that recharges the entire family for what the next week has. Okay. So the principle is this: identify 1 to 3 rituals, habits, whatever you want to call them, that create the most connection in your family, and protect them like your life depends on it, because it does. And these rituals could be as simple as going on a 10-minute walk around your neighborhood every day. It could be playing board games on the weekends. Like it could be playing Super Smash Brothers or something similar. I don't know. It's what connects you and your family together. And it doesn't even have to be your favorite thing, because everybody's going to have different favorites. But it's something that everybody enjoys enough that they're willing to do together, because the togetherness is what then really brings the full enjoyment, the fulfillment of the activity. So, moving right along. Category number 2, systems and routines. So here's where most people go wrong. See, they try to optimize everything, and I'll be the first one to say that was me. I liked order, I like efficiency, I like things to be optimal. Can't help it. Background as an engineer. That's just the way I'm wired. But I learned you can't optimize everything. And if you try to, you end up spending so much time that you really end up wasting time. So I'm talking about don't optimize every meal, every morning, every evening, every task. All right. You're going to burn out trying to maintain all these systems. Okay. Instead, hence the name of this podcast, have frameworks. Okay. Have systems and routines. All words meaning basically the same thing. So the 80-20 approach is this: you automate or systemize the 20% that eliminates 80% of the chaos. Okay. So for us, instead of me and my wife trying to do everything, here's a few things that we do. All right. As soon as the trash is full, the oldest takes it out. Okay. In the morning, when the dishes are done with the dishwasher, the second and third kid, they unload it, they put them up. If they can't reach something, no problem. Leave it on the counter. Me or my wife will put it up later. All right. When the sink is full, The oldest puts those dishes in the dishwasher. Whenever I already said, whenever the trash is full, he takes it out. Doesn't matter, morning, night, evening, it doesn't matter. Everybody puts their laundry in their laundry hamper in their room. When their laundry hamper is full or they're running out of socks or shirts or something, they bring it to the laundry room. So then every day, me and my wife, as we walk by, it's like, oh, there's something in the laundry to be done. We just go ahead and sort it, because a little bit of laundry every day keeps from this huge mountain of laundry piling up that then takes so long to do that then you miss out. Versus a little bit every day, we can sit and talk and hang out, me and my wife, or me and my wife and the kids, or wife and the kids, whatever combination of people, and do some laundry, and it's easier to stay on top of it. Okay. Also, I've mentioned this before in a previous episode, meal rotation. Okay. We have several meals that we like to rotate through. I think right now it's around 10 or so, but that number fluctuates. My wife is putting together a nice little binder that has all the meals and recipes from it. And so it's like, okay, well, we've done this in the past month, so let's not do it again. Let's go to another one. And it's just like moving it back and forth so that we don't have to think too much. We know what we like and we want to do it, and that's fine. And we still try to incorporate some new things if see something on social media or hear somebody talking about it or whatever. Well, or just come up with something. I want to try something new. We'll go research it. All right. So I'm not saying you got to be stuck in the system. All right. That's one thing that breaks systems is there's no flexibility. All right. Did you know, for example, this engineering tidbit? It's a fun fact. If you like roller coasters, I do. You'll like this. So wooden roller coasters, I'm sure everybody has at least seen and heard them run, if not been on them. And they can be a little scary, especially you go around a curve, and you hear it creaking, you feel it moving, and you're like, oh my gosh, is it going to break and fall? Well, the funny thing is, for wooden roller coasters, if they did not creak, if they did not bend, they would just snap, and then it would fall. And it's the same with the systems, okay? They need that creaking, that moving, that bending, otherwise they'll break, and then what's the point of doing it to begin with, okay? So, because of this, we don't reinvent dinner every night. Maybe every now and then, but not every night. Okay. And then we have that shopping list I've mentioned before. Okay. Where we rotate through, make shopping much easier, much faster, and eliminates hours of decision fatigue, which means we have hours of time and, more importantly, hours of mental bandwidth and emotional bandwidth to give to those who matter the most. Okay. Morning routine simplified. That's what's next. So everyone's wakes up pretty much, unless you're dead. And then I guess this podcast doesn't really matter. But you wake up, most people, they get dressed at some point, they brush their teeth, they do all that kind of stuff. So why don't you just go ahead while you're not groggy the night before and pick out, what you're going to do the next day, pretty much. So pick out your clothes so that you can get out of bed, you can get into the new clothes, unless you shower first or whatever, that's whatever your routine is. But I'm just saying. And then just lay things out the night before. Breakfast, know what it is, meal prep if possible. If not, that's fine. Me personally, I don't eat breakfast most of the days. I do intermittent fasting a lot. So, I usually skip breakfast, but I make breakfast for my kids, so I know what I'm going to do for that. Then I have my prayer and devotion time, and that could be a few minutes to 30 minutes, just kind of depends. And then out the door to the office, whatever it is. All right. So in the morning, very few decisions, basically no chaos, and I just get up and get going, which is very important for me being ADHD, because the more I have to decide on things throughout the day and the more executive function I use, then the earlier in the day that my brain just is fried, and I'm just like, okay, I need 30 minutes of nothing, So I don't want that. I want to be present. I want to be active with my kids. So I plan accordingly to what I need. Okay. Then of course the weekly planning session I've talked about. Every Sunday, roughly. Right now it's every Monday. We align calendars, we assign responsibilities, set priorities, all that kind of stuff we've talked about in our family mission statement and planning session episodes. And then the rest of the week just kind of flows through that. And we just have kind of checkups at dinner if something changes. Okay. So the principle is this: don't try to optimize everything. I find a couple of systems that eliminate the most friction. Let everything else just be good enough. I named several. Just start with one. Like some of the other examples we've used in previous podcasts. Just start with one, get it going well, then do the next one, then the next one. This isn't something that you're just going to like bam, 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 like in a week, you've got your whole life fixed. Like it's taking your whole life up to this point to get to where you're at. So it makes sense that it's going to take a little bit of time to adjust those habits and everything to get out, right? So just keep that in mind and give yourself a little bit of grace and leadway. Category 3 is next. It's emotional and spiritual health. This is where most families completely miss the 80-20 insight. They focus on activities, sports, musical lessons, events, achievements. I'm not saying those are bad, but they focus on those things and they neglect the internal work that actually creates peace and resilience. Okay, here's the truth. Your family's emotional and spiritual health is built on a few foundational practices. For us, the 20%, it's that morning devotion time, morning scripture time, whether it's myself or my wife's individual time or leading our kids through something during homeschool time. But it sets the tone for the day. It reminds us whose we are before the world tells us what we should be. Bedtime gratitude. Again, spend in the day with each kid sharing one thing that we're grateful for. We kind of do that with dinner also, but we can always talk more. There's no limit. Oh, we can't do it because we've already done it at dinner. Like, obviously, you can just do it whenever. The weekly Sabbath rest, not only is that good physically, but that's good emotionally and spiritually as well. Okay? And so it's very important. That's why I want to repeat it, because rest isn't a luxury. It's a spiritual discipline. And it's remember that your worth isn't tied to your productivity. Okay? And then conflict resolution framework. When conflict happens, and it will, we have a simple process. Okay? We apologize, we forgive, and then we move forward. Now, I know it sounds simple. In actuality, it's not, because you got emotions, especially the kids that have to go through and calm down and everything. But that's just the process that we stick to. Right? We don't hold grudges. We don't get into these shame spirals. Just grace and growth, and to do better next time. Okay? So the principle here is this: spiritual and emotional health don't require hours of therapy or perfect execution. They just require consistent, simple practices that build resilience over time. So the 80-20 filter, how do we get down to our 20%? When it comes to these 3 questions, or at least this is what I found. If you have more or less, that's fine. But these are the 3 questions I found to help me. All right, question 1. What activity or activities create the most connection and peace in my family? So write them down. Be specific and be honest. Is it playing PlayStation? Is it playing board games or card games? Is it going for a walk? Is it building something together? Is it gardening? Is it cooking together? Is it sewing? Whatever it is, write it down. Okay, make a list. All right. Question 2. What systems eliminate the most chaos and decision fatigue? So again, we're going to write these down. We're going to be specific, be honest. We're not going to overthink it. Okay. So one way you could kind of turn this on its head is what causes the most chaos and decision fatigue, and then figure out from that list, systems to eliminate it. Okay. So one of those for us was laundry. There's 7 of us, right? So that's a lot of laundry if you wait to do it all at one time. So we just changed the system and just did a little bit by little bit, and it stays manageable. Okay. Just simple little things like that. Just reframing it. But basically it is, you want to identify your chaos and decision fatigue and eliminate it. All right. Question number 3. If I could only keep 20% of what I'm currently doing, what would I keep? Now, this isn't necessarily something that you ask yourself weekly when you're going through your weekly planning. By the way, if you want a planner that helps you with all this, check out the video description and show notes. There's going to be a link to a planner I put together. It's just a Google Doc that you can download, a PDF, I think it is. You can download it, print it out, do whatever you want with it, but it'll help you with this. Okay. So maybe do it monthly, maybe do it quarterly, every 3 months, maybe do it every 6 months. Who knows? But ask yourself, if I could only keep 20% of what I'm doing, what would I keep? This is the brutal question, but it's also a clarifying question. And really, when you sit and think about it, it's a liberating question because you no longer feel like you have to do so much. Okay. So once you find out your 20%, what you do next is you just cut everything else. All right. Or at least you stop obsessing over it. So obviously, there's some things that you can't cut. Okay. You can't cut work. You got to have work, right? Like, unless you're independently wealthy, which I doubt anybody listening to this is, you can't cut work. You can't cut, maybe you don't like mowing the grass. All right. But you can't afford to pay somebody. Okay. Well, whatever. The point being, as much as possible, cut what is not part of the 20% that's currently worth keeping. Okay. Because that 20% is your non negotiable. So you're like, nope, this is for sure not going. This is going to get done at this time. It's not going to be delayed. Those other things, cutting the grass, for example, it could wait till tomorrow. It might wait till a few days because, tomorrow it rains. It's fine. It's grass, whatever. Like, it's here before us, it'll be here after us, whatever. All right. Point is, if it's not part of the 20%, it's optional. It's nice to have. But that 20%, it is sacred. Defend it at all costs. Okay. So now we're going to have some little bit of reflection time. Okay. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, what are the 3 to 5 habits or rituals that create the most peace and connection in my family right now? Like, write them down. Pause. Write them down. Don't judge them. Just write them down. All right. What systems or routines eliminate the most stress and chaos? Again, we've already gone over that. But just in case you didn't do it last time, pause, write it down. All right. Maybe it's meal prep. Maybe it's a simplified morning routine. Maybe it's weekly planning. All right. Name them down and then pick one and start with it. Okay. If you don't have them, start with one. Okay. Next question. What am I currently spending time and energy on that honestly doesn't really move the needle? All right. So be honest. And that's not to say that you don't do anything that doesn't move the needle, because that can be part of your Sabbath time, your rest time. I know for me, I need a little bit of creativity time. And so I will sometimes, you know, draw or design something like either on a sketch pad, or I might be on the computer doing it, or I like really some computer games that are like sim games, city builder games, like something where like you're trying to build and you got it's like logistics and you're designing. I like doing that. And that doesn't really move the needle a lot, a lot of times unless I'm doing it with my kids. But I still find I need that outlet. All right. So don't I know I say that because I know some people will be like, well, what about this? Like, I don't like if you want to sit and watch football for 6 hours, that's fine. Or some other sport, that's fine. Okay. I'm just saying we just need to know what do we spend time and energy on that doesn't move the needle. Okay. Because maybe we want to keep those things. So like for me, I really like watching American football. So I have now incorporated and my kids have seen I like it, and then they have watched it enough that they now like and get involved. So now we all cuddle up and bundle up together to watch some football. And it's great. It's gone from something that doesn't move the needle to moves the needle because we like to spend time together. I'm teaching them about football and they're asking questions and stuff. And as long as it's not during a play, I've had to train them like, guys, focus on the game. When a play's not happening, ask your question. But they're little kids, so it happens. They're learning, right? Point being, all that to sum up, all right? What you are doing because you think you should, all right, is not always the best thing you could be doing. All right, so that's why you gotta write this down because you need to know what actually is serving your mission. All right, then last, we've already done it, but we're gonna do it again. People need repetition. If you can only keep 20% of current habits and commitments, what would you keep? This is what gives you clarity. This is your filter. So, gone through it all, and then this one, you're like, oh, this is it. All right. Everything you just wrote, after you've gone through, that's probably your 20%. Okay. If not, go back through and ask again. If I cut this, would I, you know, feel sad, or will my life be drastically different, or whatever? All right. Just focus on the things that like are non-negotiable, that give you the most fulfillment in your life. All right, that moves that needle the most. Okay. So now the very last question, this is probably the most important one, is are you protecting it? I'm willing to bet you're not doing as good of a job as you could or you think, because everybody's like that. I'm not even doing as good of a job. There's always times where it's like, well, I kind of need to do this thing or that thing because it's just life. It's not perfect. All right. Again, perfection is not the aim. Progress is the aim. All right. Easy peasy. Got it. All right. So let's get to some practical assignments for this next week before the next episode. Okay. The first 2 days. All right. After you listen to this, just audit your current life. All right. Write everything down. We just want to know those questions, every routine, every commitment, every system. It's just really important to get it out of your head. I'm really bad about this because I can keep a lot of things tracking and straight in my head, but eventually I get so full, things just start getting jumbled up. All right, so it's really important. And there's just something about visually seeing when you write things down and you're like, oh, like, and even the act of writing down, you're like, oh, I'm spending how much time on that? Oof. And yeah, it's not great. Also, in the description, before I forget, the show notes, there'll be a link to a Google Sheet that is a time audit where you put in what you do for your 168 hours for the week. It could be weekdays, weekends. We got it broken up. And then you can really evaluate, like, is this how you want your 168 hours spent? Okay. That's pretty humbling. You think you're doing good until you see that this past week you spent 5 hours with the family and 10 hours doing things that don't matter. And then you're like, yeah, I probably change that. Anyways, that link will be in the show notes and description too. So check it out. It'll be super helpful for you. So then day 3 and 4, the next 2 days, and I always try to give a couple days because life happens, and so especially if it's your first time, it might take some time to work through it. Okay. So if you get it done faster, great. But the next 2 days, once you're done with the previous assignment, is just apply the filter. Okay. Ask yourself of your list. All right. What are the 20% of the things that create 80% of the peace, connection, and fulfillment? 80% of what I think I want out of life. Okay. Circle them, highlight them, star them, blow them up and put them on the fridge, whatever you want to do. All right. To recognize them. But the important thing is to protect them and don't let things unnecessarily crowd them out. Again, there's always a caveat. Emergencies are emergencies. Okay. So don't be coming at me in comments about that kind of crap. All right. Then days 5 through 7, simplify ruthlessly. So just take one thing at a time. All right. Again, this is a process. It's not snap your fingers. Things are going to be different. But one thing that you identify that doesn't move the needle or hardly moves it at all. All right. And you figure out a way to either eliminate it or delegate it. Or my favorite thing is, I've already told you, we have the kids helping with chores because they're part of the family. All right. So things that cause friction and take away from time together, I can then turn and use as a teaching moment for my kids of like teaching you resilience and consistency and discipline and doing things you don't want to do. And, so you take a bad and make a good out of it. Right. So you can also do that. If you can't eliminate it and you can't delegate it to somebody else, like, especially like if it's a work thing or, family thing, then like figure out a way to make a good come out of it. All right. So you go through all that and you eliminate all those things. You simplify ruthlessly. All right. So then after you're done with that, and to further simplify, you take one of your 20%. And now that you have more time, more margin, all right, double down on it. Make it even more consistent. Like maybe if it's, you try to do family dinner night, but because of all this stuff going on, you do it twice a week. Maybe after all this, you can do it 3 days a week. And then you work towards your next step is getting it to 4 days a week consistently, not every now and then, but I'm saying consistently, because consistency is the key here. All right. And that's it. We're not adding more. We're actually taking away. This is one of the few instances in life where like less actually is more. People say it all the time, but it's not always true. Less is more. Okay. In these instances. All right. Because we're being able to not be so spread thin. We can give better quality over quantity. All right. And that is, if you can't have both quality and quantity, pick quality. That's my opinion. Take it or leave it. All right. Because we're clarifying what matters when we do this, and we're letting go of what doesn't. And the best thing for me that has helped is that de-stress of letting go of what doesn't matter. Of like, oh, this has to be done at this time. Da, 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 da. Like, if it doesn't matter, then like you just stop stressing about it. And then, oh look, life happened and everything's fine anyways. You can just pray. Because if you can't tell, I'm kind of like a very upbeat, energetic, kind of, you know, out there person. So I need I need ways of being less stressed because I'm naturally make myself stressful just by my activities. I know I got problems, but it's okay. So by the end of the week, all right, you should have more clarity and more peace. Not because you're doing more, but because you're doing less of the wrong things and more of the right things. Okay. So in this episode of the Fulfillment Frameworks Blueprint for Life Without Burnout, we talked about the Pareto Principle, the 80-20 rule. We helped you identify how it applies to family life, and we gave you a framework to find your own high leverage habits. So don't forget your assignment we just talked about. Audit your life, apply the filter, and simplify. All right. So again, if you haven't already, take the assessment to help you figure out, what areas you really need the most work on. Grab that planner I mentioned. Come join the Discord. All right. Setting up a Discord where we can hang out, we can talk, we can voice or text, doesn't matter, and just help each other with our own problems we have. Help us take the framework, refine it for our specific situation, And if you found this episode helpful, make sure you like and subscribe, and then share it with somebody that could really help. Send it to your spouse or friend who's just drowning in busyness, and post it in your stories, leave a review. Do all those things that you know to do. Okay, because the more people that discover these frameworks, the more families that we can help transform. So why don't you come join me on my journey in helping to transform families from burnout to fulfillment. Okay, and if you make sure you subscribe, new episodes drop every Saturday. Okay, and regardless, remember our core principle. It's not about doing more. It's about doing more of the right things. Okay. It's about building the right frameworks. And so when you identify your 20% and protect it ruthlessly, you create a deeply fulfilling life without burnout. I'm Michael Offmiller. Thank you for building with me today. Now go find your 20% and let everything else fall away. Bye.